All right, here we go. Today we have one of the legends of animation, who is the co-executive producer and artist of the Boondocks, the real-life inspiration behind the Usher Taking Your Girl episode, as well as the reason why I became a character on the Boondocks. Also the executive producer of Black Dynamite animated series, The Last OG, The Jellies, and a lot more. Carl Jones, welcome to Vlad TV.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Of course, so we go back.
Yeah.
Man, 12, 13 years? Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Crazy. A lot has happened since then.
Yes.
All right, well, let's get into it. It's your first time here. I want to get into the whole story. So, were you born in Germany?
I was born in Germany, but I was only there for like less than a year. I was a baby, you know what I'm saying, when I moved to the States. So,
okay. Dad was in the military?
My dad was in the military. And then, they came back to the States, divorced shortly after that. And we moved into the hood.
Okay, this is Fayetteville, North Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was that like in like the 80s?
It was crazy. Fayetteville, affectionately known as Vietnam, was, during that time, it was the height of the crack epidemic. So, I literally saw like the neighborhood get turned upside down overnight. You know what I mean? So I lost a lot of friends and people getting locked up, and there was a lot of craziness going on. So, tried to find my passion, through it all and try to stick with it. Art was always a thing for me. Basketball was another thing I got into and, kind of kept me away from a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of the stuff that was going down.
Did you get caught up at all?
A little bit, done a few things, nothing too crazy, but, it happens.
Yeah. Okay. So I heard you've been drawing ever since you could hold a pencil.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we all draw. I drew as a kid, I wasn't very good, but, I still drew a lot. But you really took it seriously. Like, when did you know that you have an actual talent for this thing as opposed to, like, how all your friends are doing it?
Yeah. Well, I when I did start drawing, my dad was an artist, right? So it was interesting because I remember one day he came home from work and he gave me like a big stack of paper, right? And told me to draw on it, right? So I was drawing on each piece of paper. I would draw like a little character, go to the next piece of paper, draw another character, go to the next sheet. And when he came home from work the next day, I was so excited to show him that, like, I drew on every piece of paper that he gave me. He was like, all right, now you need to fill up this entire sheet of paper, flip it over, fill that side up, and then come back to me.
Okay.
Right? So that became a thing, between us. So like, he would come home with a stack of paper. I would fill up the whole page, the entire stack, and try to have it done before he came home from work the next day. And that was like our tradition. And I don't know, I think that also helped to, sharpen my skills. Didn't quite know that I had anything different from any other kid at the time, but I knew I had a passion for it. So it wasn't until like I got into like grade school, and that it very, very quickly the kids around me, made it known that like I could draw better than everybody else or whatever. So I started, I tell you, the funny thing is, Maite Garcia, who is Prince's, who was one of Prince's
his ex,
yeah.
Right.
So she was one of my classmates, like in like I was like the third or second grade or something like that. And I used to draw pictures of Prince for her. This is no lie. Like
okay.
And because I was charging people at the time, like to draw. Once I realized that I had a little bit of a talent. So I would charge people to draw like Michael Jackson, Prince. She used to ask me to draw Menudo. I don't know if y'all remember Menudo.
Of course.
And then I was drawing people's jeans and jackets and, do graffiti and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of how it started to take off. And then my art teacher at the time, her name was Mrs. Coleman. She noticed that I was, kind of shining a little bit. So she put me in a gifted and talented art class. So that created a lot of hate because they would pull me out of the regular class to do this like gifted and talented art thing. So yeah, so I don't know. I at that point I knew I had something that was maybe a little different or unique, and winning little art contests and stuff like that in school, and you know what I mean. Yeah, that's kind of where it started.
Yeah, I remember. I haven't thought about this in a very long time, but around 10 years old, I was drawing a lot, and I thought I was actually good. So my family enrolled me in this little class at this like local community center, and like this Russian artist who I guess was somewhat known, and he was teaching little kids, and he had us draw like bowls of fruit or whatever, which was kind of weird to me because I was doing superheroes and stuff, but I did my best. And I remember at the end of the process, he took all the pictures and he laid them out from best to worst, and I would be worst every time.
That's
over and over again. My mom came to pick me up. I was crying in tears, and I never took another art class after that. And, not to say I would have been great or anything, but it just shows how a teacher early on can have such an effect. Like for you were put in a gifted program. For me, I was shitted on, and it's like, it's sort of, it set off a path for both of our lives, where you became a successful artist and I never touched art again.
Well, yeah. And, I do believe that, you also just got to have a passion for it, right? Because like, I know people who maybe didn't start out as great artists, but their passion and their drive and their commitment to becoming good turned them into an even better artist. And for me, it was just, I knew it was in me. Like I could not stop. Like to this day, like I got stacks of sketchbooks all around the house. I keep them in the car. I keep them everywhere. Like it's kind of a unconscious thing that I just do. Like even if I wasn't getting paid for it, I would be doing it, just because I love it, and I had an art teacher in high school, Mr. Perkins. he used to be a cartoonist, right? And I didn't notice at first when I the first day of class, like the whole class was going crazy. Everybody's like, throwing paper, they playing music. The class was wild, right? A lot of people took art class because they just saw it as like an easy grade. So you had a lot of people that didn't really take it serious. And so the first day he gave us all a piece of paper and just told us to draw whatever we want. So while the class is going crazy, I'm sitting here drawing this comic strip about a fruit fly. I remember that. And he walked by the desk. He's like an old white man with a big beard, pot belly. And he walked by the desk and he looked over and he said, looks like someone has a career in cartooning. Then he just walked off, right? And then he told me to stay after class. And then that's when he told me he used to be a cartoonist and he thinks that I have something. And, so he was pushing me to like stay away from all the craziness. You know what I mean?
Love it. Okay. So in 2005, you moved to LA. So there's a big gap there. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Between high school and moving to LA, because you were in your early 30s at that point. So what were you doing work-wise leading up to that?
Everything. I was hustling, man. I was hustling. So leading up to me coming to LA, I was the DVD king in my city. Like I was the movie man, and I had mixtapes. I had your mixtape.
Okay.
I had the Biggie joint and the Tupac.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I never knew that. All right.
Yeah. Oh man, you made me a lot of money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this was the precursor to our relationship. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't even know.
Never even knew that. Okay.
I know. I was a big Vlad fan, man.
Wow.
You kidding me? Like I was in barbershops and beauty salons. I was killing them, man, with your mixtapes that you didn't make any money off of from me. But
it's all good. It's all good. It's all bootleg anyway. So
yeah, whatever. but yeah, man, I was like the Nino Brown of bootleg movies. I had people working for me and stuff, man. And I was literally driving from North Carolina to New York at least sometimes twice a week. You know what I'm saying, to re-up. And it was a whole thing, man. So it's crazy because I had one almost near-death experience, with the bootleg movies. Because I was, so I used to hustle in the projects, right? And so we had this spot, me and my boy, we had this spot right behind the projects. It was at a convenience store called, I think it was called John's Market or something like that. But I used to set up a van. Like I have my van set up and a little table in front of the van. I would have the movie set up. And, we would be there like 2:00 in the morning because the clubs were let out, right? So one day I set up and this guy, he comes over to the table and he was like, yo, he said, I bought this movie, man. And I sat down to watch it with my daughter. And like there was somebody walking in front of the screen, you know what I'm saying? And I want to get my money back. And I was like, well, if you go to a real movie and somebody gets up and walks in front of the screen, you can't get your money back. I thought that was pretty clever, but he didn't. And so cut to like 20 minutes later, I'm standing in front of my van with at the table with my boy Hood. And I see this car rolling up into the gas station. There's a bunch of dudes in the car. And the guy in the passenger seat has this arm down and this arm on the window, which is not a good sign. And my spidey senses were just going off as he started to move closer. So something just told me, I just grabbed Hood. He was talking to somebody and I just grabbed him. I was like, yo, get down. As soon as I pulled him down, shots rang out, right? And he shot out the back. He shot, because my van, the windows of my van were right behind me. So he shot out the glass of the van and then they peeled off down the street. And my boy Hood was like, yo, let's go get them niggas. I'm like, you can go get them niggas. I'm like, I'm going home. I ain't about that life, yo. So I went home and I remember I was sitting on the edge of the bed, man. And I was just thinking to myself, like, because you gotta understand, like at that time, I had a drawing table in my kitchen, this little cramped, tiny little apartment, and I had like a drawing table and I had like a huge box beside my drawing table where I would just put all my ideas and, stuff I would write and draw. And I just had these dreams and I knew it was something that I wanted to do. I just didn't know how it was gonna happen. And so that was a moment where I was like, I really got to make a push to do something different. Cause like, I don't know how long this shit's going to last. You know what I mean? And also at the time, we were going from like, everything was kind of going digital. So even the bootleg movie, they were cutting the movies down to like $5 a pop. It used to be $10. We were selling for $10. It was going to $5 a pop. Then it was like, 3 for 10, and then people was walking around with just blank DVDs. They were burning at home and CD. It was just, so the game just started changing also. By the way, I also the feds, I got hit like a couple times, like, by the feds. They started following me around and shit. Like it just got crazy. I tell you a funny story. So I'm in a comic book shop, right? And I'm looking at a comic book and this white guy stands beside me and he picks up a book and he goes, so what kind of movies you got? And I look over and he's got a suit on. I'm like, do I know you? He's like, nah, but you're gonna get to know me. And I was like, oh my God. Like, yo, so I leave the store, right? The next day, my wife at the time, she calls me and she's like, some guys came by here with suits on and they wanted to talk to you. And I'm just like, yo, this is wild. Like over movies, like it started to get really, really serious. So it came at a good time that I decided to leave and go to LA. But I actually had a job before that in animation before I moved to LA, which I don't know if you know about, but it was with Rockefeller Films. I was actually, yeah, that was actually my first official job, so, and that's kind of a crazy story, but the short of it is Rockefeller was developing an animated series for Beanie Siegel called The Playpen, right? And it was basically like the Rockefeller rap. It was all the rappers that were, really was all the rappers on the state property side as babies in a daycare center that was like a correctional facility. It was, so instead of nap time, they had like lights out and shit like that. And so they needed someone to help them develop it. So I submitted some artwork for it and they loved it, flew me out. And so I started working with them. And I remember being in the studio with Beanie Siegel and Petey Crack and them guys, and it'd be like Percocet pills and syrup everywhere, Uzis and banana clips and shit on the table. I'm trying to draw, and then Beanie Siegel got arrested for attempted murder. Yeah, right. So that killed the cartoon, all puns intended. And when that happened, I just really that was the point where I was like, all right, I guess, I got to really go where cartoons are being made, where animation is happening, where people are making moves. And so we packed up everything and moved out to LA.